Welcome to the final episode of our Numenera series with Darcy Ross. Before we get to the episode, some announcements as usual.
As a reminder, the next 2 weeks we'll be taking some time off, and there will be no Character Evolution cast episodes for the rest of the month. We are still recording series when we can and planning content, and we will be releasing those series at our normal cadence, usually the first Monday of every month, and then the next 2 Mondays after that. So stay tuned for all of the exciting stuff that we have planned, hopefully very soon.
Not our fault that June had 5 Mondays.
I know.
How dare.
Time, how dare.
You can still use the promotional code that we announced at the start of this series at the Monte Cook Games store. The code CCC5OFF, all lowercase, the numeral 5, will get you $5 off at the MCG store. Please go take a look at what they have and maybe get yourself something nice.
Yeah, they got a lot of nice things, so pretty much anything will get you something nice.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that we'd love to do when Amelia and I can sit down for these cold opens together is read reviews. We only have a couple left in our little box of reviews, so any more reviews you want to send our way, we would be really, really, really happy about that. You can leave us a review on Podchaser if Apple Podcasts is a little too cumbersome, which we know it is.
It is.
And we're checking Podcast Addict now as well, and a few other places. So like this one came from Facebook. This was a review from Daryl Holiday II, and they say, amazing cast and guests. As a new developer, I learned so much, and as a tabletop fan, I love the short journey through each new system.
Well, thank you, Daryl.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very nice.
With all that out of the way, here's the episode.
Yeah, enjoy.
Welcome back to our discussion episode. Last time we created characters for Numenera. This episode we'll be discussing the character creation process. We are very excited to welcome back Darcy Ross. Do you want to go ahead and reintroduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about the character that you made?
Oh, yes. So hello, everybody. I'm Darcy Ross. I use she, her pronouns, and I work for Monte Cook Games as their community relations coordinator. I'm also a snailologist by training and a weird gamer and lover of all types of games. So Numenera is my favorite RPG. It's the RPG that got me GMing for the first time. And I've been GMing mostly Numenera for a long time now. And so I haven't gotten to make a character in a while. So the character I made was Jiren Deft. They are a nurturing wight who crafts illusions. And so they are sort of nurturing in personality. They're a wight, which means they do a lot to like craft Numenera from salvaged parts like Iotum. And they craft illusions. So they are adept at some strange either technology or magic-like ability that lets them create like a big, cool, moving illusion, complete with sound. Mm-hmm. And their background is that they've got their 2 friends who you're about to meet from our other your wonderful hosts are very helpful for helping me like craft illusions. We work really well as a team. I am a childhood friend of Ryan's character, who is Selena Lightfoot. And I am close friends and like have worked in a tailor shop with Amelia's character, Ursula. And so we are a tight team. We do adventuring together. I have a weird oddity that helps stains get removed from my clothing. So I'm very neat. But, we still must venture out for the wonders of the ninth world. And so I'm pretty adept there too.
I love it. Amelia, how about your character?
My character is Ursula, who is a prepared nano who howls at the moon. I think I decided between the last episode and this one that my lycanthropic form is a really big, scary-looking bear.
Oh, cool.
We can decide what else we want to do with that.
Heck yeah.
As we go through it. But I think it's like a bear kind of a thing. So yeah, like Darcy said, we worked at this tailor shop together. I do have a wand that keeps away insects, which I'm pretty excited about. I think that is like I feel like the oddities that we got are like super useful things that I would love to have in real life.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I love our little group. I'm so excited about this. Ryan, you want to tell us about your character?
Yeah, my character, Celine Lightfoot, she, her pronouns. Celine is a serene delve who moves like a cat. So Celine kind of got her start teaching children all about ancient archaeology throughout the world. And met some good friends in a distant city at one point. I'm sure that won't complicate things at all in any sort of adventure. And they are childhood friends with Jiren. And we grew up probably since early childhood, if not neighbor kids or something like that.
Yeah.
So we go back a long ways, and I think that connection allowed me to connect pretty quickly with Ursula as well, who has been working quite closely with them. And I kind of went out adventuring for a while, exploring, and finally came back after a series of strange occurrences kind of led me right back to the other characters. And the current situation that we're going to hopefully find ourselves in.
This is very good. This is a very good group of people.
I know.
It's very good.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our discussion segment that we call D20 for your thoughts.
D20 for your thoughts?
All right. In this segment, we want to talk to our guests about their thoughts on the character creation process and how it relates to this system and to other games.
We like to take time to get to know our guests. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into RPGs and how you ended up doing what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So when I was a kid, I was a big, fantasy reader. I would read anything with like a fantasy look on the title, just like absolute inhaled any sort of fantasy trashy material I could get my hands on, and played a lot of video games in that vein too. And I think just through being really in sort of fantasy genres, I had heard about D&D. It was this mysterious, game. I was doing some like freeform role play on weird forums, but I had never gotten to like play Dungeons and Dragons. And so I eventually got a player's guide of probably like 3rd edition and studied it like some arcane tome that because it doesn't actually tell you how to play the game or run a Dungeons and Dragons game, as I'm sure many of you now know, but I, a child, did not. And so I tried to infer, based on this character creation book, how a game would run. And I like knew there were maps. That was about as far as I got. So at one point, my younger sister was having a sleepover with a friend, and I made a little graph paper map and accosted them and made 2 characters for them, a ranger and a wizard, and made them dungeon delve with me and my absolute vague understanding of the rules. And so that was how I got my start. Ever since then, I've been, I spent a lot of years like trying to find a group or find people with the knowledge to run RPGs. Like it was really tough in kind of the days before it was as easy as it is now on the internet to like find a group to teach you. And so I started playing a lot in grad school, and I got really into like lots of indie RPGs and learning about all these different systems from Google Plus. And then I went to one fateful Gen Con that had Monte Cook's Numenera at it, and I got to play this weird science fantasy game by a guy who I knew from the really rich, weird setting of Planescape. And this setting of Numenera captured me. The the mechanics and how empowered I felt as a player absolutely captured me. And so I knew no one would run Numenera for me, so I had to learn to GM. Since then, I've been a GM at a lot of cons and running demos at stores, and worked with Contessa to support other marginalized gamers, picking up the mantle of GM. And while I was in grad school, MCG, Monte Cook Games, had an opening for a community manager. And so I switched gears from down in the snail pits and became community manager for Monte Cook Games. So I still love playing lots of different games, but my heart is still rooted in Numenera.
That's a lovely series of events that led you to where you are.
Yeah, kind of wild.
Well, can you tell us about your personal process for picking and creating a character in any role-playing system?
I think there's kind of two levels to it. The first is I find I learn so much about how I would want to make a character through play. You know, it's sort of a chicken and an egg problem, right? Like my character creation is enhanced by having played before. Playing is enhanced by having gone through the process of character creation. So both of them feed by each other. But often what I do is if it's a one shot, I might grab a pre-gen because I like to see how the designers of the game make a character. And I find that kind of fun to look at. But when I go to actually pick out my character options for myself, I really like to play off of other players. I find that's like we sort of did that in our character creation too, right? There was a little back and forth about like, oh, you have this ability, I could take this ability, and that would be a fun like dynamic for our characters. So I find I enjoy responding to the characters around me and building a character that can like highlight the cool strengths of others or like push against them in an interesting way or be a foil, right? Like I use that a lot. The other thing is like I usually just try to find like the juiciest weird ability or like what's a strange narrative thing I can do, right? I don't enjoy optimizing for like mechanical combos very well. Like I would rather have a mechanically useless but narratively interesting weird thing that I could do. So often I'm like searching through books to look for that kind of juicy bit. I'm absolute flavor over substance and it bites me. So I don't necessarily, fully endorse it, but that's what I do.
That's awesome.
Have your own kind of fun, whatever that is.
Exactly. There's no wrong way to play as long as we're all doing okay and having fun.
Right. How do you think character creation in this game stacks up with other systems that you've played?
Gosh, yeah, it is one of the sweet spots for me is feeling like I have a lot of choice and flexibility without overwhelming me by being like having no guide rails. Right. And so I think one of the ways that Numenera's character creation system really works for me is that it has a lot of options, but it has lots of room for like riffing off of things or changing the flavor of things. There's a lot of like narrative customization that I can still do with my character. One of the things that's different, Numenera often gets lumped in with like indie games, and I think the character creation process is a little involved because there is a lot of like stuff, right? Like Numenera has because so many of its abilities are really unique and different, they don't follow a template. And so it does mean like when I'm looking at the abilities that my right has, they look very different than like the tier information you'll find in Amelia's Nano, right? Like I've got some stuff about this weird character creation subsystem that I've picked a character that wants to engage with, so I get some perks. So they don't map onto each other very well, which is definitely fun, but takes some time to kind of like get your footing around.
Well, I noticed like when we were going through and Ryan's picking his skills and I'm looking at my thing and I'm like, it doesn't say skills anywhere in here. Do I not have skills?
Right.
What are these esoteries?
Yeah. So there's a lot of asymmetries in the characters. And I think that is a perk, but it makes character creation kind of like, exciting but slower, right? Because we're not all following the same template. One of the things, I think about like, Numenera thinks a lot about like, what do you do in the world? Like, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be the really explory type? Are you going to be the really speaky type? So I don't know. I feel like types map closest onto like kind of playbooks if people are thinking about PBTA games. But playbooks are really, here is the menu. It is on this 1 or 2 pages. You circle things on this menu and then you're ready to play. I think that's really cool. And I almost wonder if there's not like a Numenera hack where you could make playbooks for Numenera, right?
Easily, yeah.
But there's it is more like D&D than, like D&D 3rd edition or something where you're like looking for weird feats and your equipment really matters because you get weird stuff, like your ciphers do anyway. So it takes a while in terms of like equipment is part of the fun, at least the Numenera objects you get, like the oddities, right? And so some games like Fate, I know, don't tend to, or at least in my experience, don't tend to care as much about like equipment or what weird object you have, right? It's existing at a different level than like the tangible stuff in your pocket. And Numenera cares about the stuff in your pocket, but makes it really weird. And that's why I care about it. And now I am also very invested in that weird wand that keeps insects away and how can I MacGyver it? So
It's interesting because you do need all of those tiny details like you do in D&D, but unlike D&D, they're not tied to numbers. They're tied to
That's a great way
pieces.
to put it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, it's very much a blend of like the crunchiness and like staticness of D&D and the malleability of PBTA.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Okay.
Strong agree.
Yes, I know.
Yes,
I know.
good.
I'm like, I feel like
I don't have anything else to say.
I would love to have like, I feel like I could have an episode about this in like detail, right? I think I love Cypher Speak is the podcast that I've run with Troy Pitchelman. And we do a number of our episodes have focused on like how the Cypher system, which powers Numenera and is where the Cypher system originated, like how we compare it to some other different kind of systems, right? Like Savage Worlds. And, I think we've done a number of system comparisons and I always find that really fruitful and interesting. I think anyone who's I feel like the character creation system for this, I think it requires a person to take a little more time. If you aren't interested in spending more time than you would in like a PBTA game, then you probably want to grab a pre-gen, of which there are many for free online. Right. And then you can customize from there. So
absolutely. And I like the how weapons are just like there's 3 tiers. Mechanically, they all do the same thing, but what sort of flavor do you want to give to it? Yeah,
and like my roommate John Harness and I constantly talk about how what we're really looking for in games is dress up. You know, we just like we want to look real cool, and we want to have like cool stuff that matters absolutely in no sense mechanically. And Numenera really asks you to like, even all the ciphers, like they block out all the little like one-shot magic items for ciphers, but they give you like these options, right? Like, hey, if you want this one to be a wearable device, it's like a cool headband. But if you want it to be an internal device, it could be like something you swallow or like an injector. And so I think as we're doing the character creation, part of that is sort of selecting your ciphers, and it's teaching you like, go flavor your stuff how you want, right?
Yeah.
I really love that.
That's really cool. So do the mechanics of character creation here reinforce the feel of Numenera?
It's such an interesting question. And I would like, I'm really excited to hear your 2 responses to this too. I think the ways in which it reinforces like the feel of Numenera is that there are a lot of open blanks, right, for you to write in, right? There's no defined skill list. There's like, these background options that you're asked to sort of pick from or make up on your own. Like, how did you meet your pals? What's a cool thing about your backstory? How did you link to the starting adventure? And I think that like those asking the player to fill in the blanks in, without giving them like a list really says, I don't know, I think it starts to signal to a player that Numenera is a world where kind of anything is possible. You're about to enter a really fantastical place. And I think it also prepares you for like curiosity and discovery and like picking some interesting, juicy choices that you'll figure out how to like weave together later, right? Like, unlike games that have a defined skill list, you're not like, when I think about Gumshoe a lot, and I think it shares some with the Cypher system as well. But Gumshoe often has like it has an extremely defined skill list, and like if you have a point in a skill, it makes you any clues related to that skill as you're investigating, you would automatically get, and you can spend from points and stuff. But if you don't take archaeology, you're not going to know the clue for archaeology. Because Numenera has this like really fluid skill list, it's asking you to come up with unusual solutions. And I think it's really empowering to be like, no, I can look at my character sheet and make arguments for why X or Y makes sense, or I'm going to try this weird way to bring these skills together, or what if I could do this? Yeah. I think it really encourages that creative problem solving really early on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the fact that it's open, and this kind of goes into our next question, which is how does the process of character creation set a player's expectations for playing the game? But I think there were a lot of things that I, as a player, had to like have input on and say, like, this decision that I make now determines something about this world.
Totally.
That it tells me and sort of signals to me that during the game, I'm going to have a lot of those kinds of choices too, because things were left open. And I was like, I could say, this piece of Numenera or whatever, this, like, I decide what that looks like. And so that tells me something about the world that we're in.
And tells the GM and the other players.
Right. And we talked about player intrusions and things like that too. It tells me that I sort of have a lot of agency over what this looks like.
It's very like, what's the word I want to, it's like a hidden collaborative world building sort of thing. It kind of sneaks up on you. Yeah. It feels like you are making these decisions that are building this world. Like when you think of the ninth world, 1 billion years in the future, 8 prior civilizations risen and fallen, and now you're in this ninth one figuring out what that means and where the layers are all sitting. You're kind of building the past as well as the present. By these ciphers. Like, okay, well, yeah, I've got this cool cipher. It does this thing, and it looks like this. What civilization was that from?
You've asserted a fact about somebody that existed before, right? Like
exactly. Somebody made this.
I'm really glad you said it that way. I think that there are a lot of choices to make in character creation for this. And I think I hadn't put my finger on why it is still really satisfying and worth going through and making all those choices. And I think you're right. It is like the collaborative world building is subtly woven through this. And so it does take a while, but man, do I ever feel really ready to like run a game for these characters by the end of it, right? Like we've established some really cool arcs. We know there's a city that we have this tailor in. We've got these really weird ciphers that we would go on to describe. And you've got a series of mysterious occurrences to investigate. Like that's a lot of campaign setup world building that we've already kind of done as we build our characters.
Yeah. And children learning archaeology and about the past is an important factor in this world, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
I think, too, it's the way that you have, like, the descriptor and the type and the way that those things are really broad sort of gives you the idea that things are going to be kind of fluid and negotiable.
Yes.
Because we talked about like being able to flavor the things the way that you want to, and talked about like skills being kind of open like that, like doors. Yeah. And it tells me that as a player, I'm going to have a lot of agency in those choices, and that the GM is going to be taking a lot of cues from the things that I've already established, that like by the time we get to the game, I've already told the GM, like, here are the things that are interesting to me, and the thing, like, there's all these strings to pull on already.
Yeah.
I think that's such a good point. I love the character sentence. And I think one of the perks of having a character sentence, so having a one-sentence summary of what your character is good at and does and what their shtick is, kind of like fate aspects do, right? Your main aspect should be kind of your big shtick. I think that sentence is useful for a lot of ways, for a lot of reasons. But one of them is also like, it's asking you to continue to stop thinking about your character as an assemblage of stats and options, and remember that they all come from this character sentence. And so, I don't know, I think there's a number of ways that Cypher and Numenera point you back to the narrative, even though you might have to dip into mechanics. You may need to dip into mechanics to adjudicate something. It is reminding you to come back to the conversation at the table. Monte talks a lot about how he really likes to design around having really interesting conversation at the table. And he's like, that is like the meat of RPGs. It's like, what are we saying to each other, or silently communicating to each other, even if it's a game with no, voices. And I think Cypher points you back to that rich conversation with things like the character sentence, and with things like not a defined skill list, right? You're trying to say, oh, I took this, I took a skill in tailoring, and so I'm going to explain to you why tailoring makes sense here, and what I remember from my tailoring days, and why that's going to help me create this weird solar sail thing that we're going to use to sail across the chasm.
As long as I can parkour at some point.
You're going to parkour. You're going to use that skill all day long. Come on. It's going to be amazing.
Any excuse to use that.
I got to go a block. All right, I'm going to parkour over that building.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Climb up that wall, backflip over this thing.
Yeah.
All right, we're good to go.
And one of the funny things about Numenera is like, Numenera is the word for, weird, mysterious technology of the ancient past. So it is, you might call a strange singing metal beetle Numenera, right? It might be an oddity. It doesn't seem to do anything. Your bomb cipher is Numenera. That enormous floating obelisk off in the distance that we could probably climb someday, that's Numenera. So like the Nanos, understanding Numenera skill can probably be applied to like almost anything, in many ways. And like, that's a feature, not a bug, right? People who are good at stuff are going to keep giving us interesting information. You're going to parkour, and we're going to go find a cool new spot to go explore.
Exactly.
The broadness can be really embraced in the system.
Awesome. Well, since we kind of covered that one question, I'm going to move on to the next one. What do you think is one of the biggest flaws of character creation in this system, and what are some of the best parts?
Ooh, good question. I think one of the flaws, or at least like drawbacks, even if it is maybe worth the drawback, is that character creation, it does take a while, and it can be a little intimidating when you haven't played yet. And so, I think one thing that can be tough is like, you have these 3 pools, might, speed, and intellect, and, you don't know like how hard the game is, or how like punishing. And so, it's hard to get a sense of like, ooh, should I like distribute these all evenly? Should I go really hard in one and really low in another? And they start you out with reasonable starting values, so you're never going to be like useless. But I'm always like intimidated by systems where I'm like, oh, I have to like allocate these points in this game I've never played.
I don't know what they're used for.
I know
how often they're going to matter. Or...
Exactly. So I think like that's a hard part of it. I think that's kind of a flaw. One of the other pieces that, again, is sort of like double-sided to me is when you look at that character sheet, right? Because these characters can be pretty asymmetric, sometimes it isn't clear, like, where do you write this or that? Or like, where should I jot down this? It's sort of open, and like people use those character sheets pretty differently. And I think that's absolutely okay. But when you're first learning that system, sometimes you're like, where is, like, I have proficiency in weapons, and like, sometimes that doesn't matter to other characters, right? Like they're not going to be writing down, they don't have those proficiencies. They don't write that down somewhere. So there's not like the little box that says weapon proficiency. And so that can be a little like disorienting. I think once you've played, or once you've used a pre-gen, you get a sense of it and it's okay. But that first time, it can be a little hard to find your bearings. Yeah. What about you guys? What'd you find tough?
Yeah, I think probably the toughest thing was, figuring out the character sheet, because it's deceptively simplistic.
Yeah.
At the same time. which is interesting. The first page is just kind of a summary of who you are and where you came from. And then the second page is all the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's hard to wrap your mind around it at first, because I played Cypher system a couple times before, but only those 2 times, and both with pre-gens. Mm-hmm. So diving into the character creation itself was a little daunting at first.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, there are so many options.
Yes, there are.
And it also sounds like you could expand beyond those options and pick whatever you think applies. And then you have to make up what that means mechanically as well, which makes sense. But when you get down to it, it's not as bad as it looks at first.
Yeah. It's the standard character sheet, you'll see how it has kind of 3 columns on each side. Mm-hmm. It's meant to fold over into a little trifold, which I find extremely charming.
Pamphlet. It's
a little pamphlet.
Oh, that's lovely.
You know, you'll note that like when it's folded up like that, it's got the character sentence on top and a spot for like an illustration or some notes or like little stickers or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got the backstory on the bottom and on like the back of the pamphlet, and you fold it open inside for that nitty gritty. And I think that's like another way that Numenera is reinforcing, like, you know, play up your character sentence, like, you know, trying to empower you to sort of stick with the narrative and not feel like tied down to your mechanical, only what's on your character sheet.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah, it is compared to, I think you're absolutely right that like when you've just picked up a pre-gen, they're really easy to use. They're pretty easy to navigate. There's just not too much there, but it is quite a process getting you there, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of a drawback. How about you, Amelia? Any sticking points for you so far?
I think when we got into type and the fact that they were so different from each other.
Yes. Yeah.
It tripped me up a little bit because we're trying to run through it together. I'm like, where are you? Why doesn't mine look like that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand what you're saying. And so that took me a minute to like go back and like as Ryan's talking about his skills and things, I'm like, where is he getting this from? Because I don't
you
see
start
it.
to calibrate.
And so like I had to go look at what he's looking at and being like, oh, mine just doesn't look like that. So I think it's not like you make a character one time and you're like, now I know how to do this. Whereas like in PBTA,
really
like the first time we sat down to record our Masks episode, I was like, somebody explain to me what on earth a playbook is.
Yeah.
Because like everybody keeps saying playbook and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And then, like, once you've absorbed that, you can make any PBTA character you want because you've figured that out. And so this one's a little bit different that, like, having made one character, I'm not sure that I could go make a second one and be like, oh, I totally know what I'm doing.
Yeah. There would at least be, like,
different.
a new piece, right? There would be some new thing to go look at.
Right.
Yeah. I think now that I've created one myself, I feel like I have the tools to deal with that, that there's going to be some differences, especially created them as a group here. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to create more characters now because of those differences, because
totally
all the characters are a bit different and all the puzzle pieces, although they look similar from afar, there's some intricacies within them that make them much more interesting.
Yeah. I know I've talked about like parts that I love throughout the episode, but like maybe if I had to pick one thing that I think is sort of the best part of character creation, you know, I think it's that character sentence, right? Like there are a lot of like little details that you have to write down as a result of the descriptor, type, and focus. But whenever I find that a really good anchor, right? Like because I sometimes struggle to like embody a new character, I find that like having that character sentence is like a really grounding point for role play. It reminds me like what I built my character for theoretically. And so I find that like sometimes when I have mechanically complex character sheets, I'm like lost in the options down in the mechanics, and that character sentence really helps me understand who I am, helps my other players remember what I'm about, because they don't really need to know all the nitty-gritty choices that I made. But as long as they know my character sentence, they kind of can remember what my PC is supposed to be doing. So that's like my favorite part is the character sentence. You have that at the end. It totally rocks.
Yeah, I know that was nice to have to go back to as I was making choices to say, okay, like if I picked prepared, what would I have that would go along with this? Like what kind of choice would a prepared person make?
Oh, cool.
And so that was really nice to kind of like anchor it, because I do get that sort of analysis paralysis when you have like too many choices and you're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to pick. And to have that kind of anchor to go back to and say, okay, I'm prepared. I know that about myself. What would I do from there?
Yeah, the character sentence for me was probably one of the most interesting parts. It's, again, this game has a lot of deceptively simple sort of stuff in it, where it's really from the surface level, it's like, okay, yeah, it's just a sentence that has 3 words in it, and those 3 words mean something. But then you dive into the details of those words, and it completely defines your character.
Yeah, right. That world building that we ended up doing as a part of it. Yeah, under the hood, there's a lot more going on.
Exactly, yeah. And I love how it kind of spills into that collaborative world building territory too. Unintentionally, from our perspective as creating the characters, just like, oh yeah, I'm creating this thing. Oh, and I'm creating this other thing. Oh wait, those things add up.
Yeah.
And now we got some cool information about the society and cool information about how others might view our group and all that sort of stuff.
I guess, character sentence is my absolute favorite. My second favorite is the oddity, because it's just like, it feeds into this, like, what is the world we live in? What are we interacting with? And it's like a cool, weird thing that, I don't know, often becomes kind of like emblematic or iconic to the character, right? Like I got a lot of like role play ideas off of that. And so oddities are just like flavor packed objects. And so I love
the trinket table in D&D too, because you're like, why do I have this thing? What does this tell me about my character? Like, why am I carrying this like one sock around? Like, why is this important to me? Why do I have it? Like, when I can only carry so many things, why is this the thing I chose to take on this journey with me?
Exactly.
Like, it's so valuable for like one tiny little piece of like, I love that stuff about character creation too, is that like, so many people put so much work into the stats and my skills and all that kind of stuff. And I'm always like, what's the one weird random trinket that I have? And like, why did I move that with me 4 different houses? Like, why is that the thing that I still keep packing in the box and not giving to Goodwill?
Oh, when I saw that trinket table, like Troy, my co-host of Cypher Speak, and I just like flipped a lid. We were like, it's oddities for D&D. Yes. Like, we were so excited.
I think when we were rolling for those in our D&D episode, my character got a 12 volt battery for his trinket. Yeah. It was like described as this like boxy thing with 2 cylindrical tops and like tingled when you put it to your tongue or something like that.
Yes.
And it's like, that's a 12 volt battery. It just blew my mind.
Yeah. Like there's definitely Easter eggs in Numenera as well that are like things from maybe our world that you might be able to recognize. I love
it. Buckyballs.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I own a few and are completely out of reach of my kids.
I want to ask you, how do you think the mix of sci-fi and fantasy affects the kinds of characters that people play in these games?
So I think that the combo of science and fantasy and just Numenera in general, it creates some really weird characters, as I'm sure you can see from some of those like really strange focus options. You get like just some of the weirdest PCs I've ever gotten to play with. But I also like that, you have this sort of its own thing, science fantasy genre. And then on each side, you have like more pure, quote unquote, like fantasy and sci-fi. And because you have these kind of 3 different, like circles that your characters can find themselves in this Venn diagram, like players who are like overwhelmed by being too weird can like, maybe they're more comfortable with like sort of a fantasy character. They can absolutely play a straight up fantasy character that doesn't want to deal with like your technological, nonsense. And it's just like a big paladin with a cool sword, right? They're big glaive. I've had characters play that alongside like a character who basically died and became incorporeal and was just an animated like hand for a while, and over the course of a campaign like slowly assembled more body parts, right? So that was like playing next to like the fighter who had a pet, right? Like their focus was like has a cool pet. It was great. Like controls beast or something, commands beasts. And then you've also got like super sci-fi, right? Like, especially with the introduction of cool like vehicles and vehicle related like movement and chase scenes and stuff that Numenera Destiny brought. Like, you could play your hotshot pilot, right? You know, your Poe Dameron. You know, there's Numenera in Space is one of the supplements. It's not called that. It's called a better name, called Into the Night. But
Numenera in space.
It's so great though. And so I think one of the things it produces is that different players can kind of find their comfort zones in those different realms. I think that the mishmash of genres it's a setting built to support the combination of those genres, and so you get players can find something that really works for them, even if they're really different, and they all work together. That's sort of what I've seen.
That's awesome.
I love it. That's so weird.
When you were talking about the setting and everything, it made me really curious if you could travel to another world somehow through magic or technology and find maybe a previous civilization.
Anything is possible in the ninth world.
It's wild.
Yeah. There's the book that's just about to come out is called Voices of the Datasphere, which I haven't even plugged because I'm bad at that, apparently. I'm just so excited about Numenera. I can't, I'm just very focused. But Voices of the Datasphere is one of our new books that introduces and lets you explore the datasphere, which is kind of like the ninth world internet, or what's left of it, or maybe multiple internets. But in the previous books, it's like a thing that you can maybe like get a weird cryptic answer from, right? So it's sort of like an Ask Google or Ask Alexa. Suddenly you have like a weird, rich piece of, an answer to one of your questions, or like a cool asset towards something. But Voices of the Datasphere is like, what if Tron but Numenera? It's like writing yourself into the datasphere and going into these realms of, light and information, and possibly like traveling to other places in the ninth world. Or I don't have the book, so I can't tell you if this is a spoiler or not, but I don't see why I feel like the datasphere could bring you to different times. Yeah. I feel like it could bring you to different worlds and all kinds of stuff, right? So I think that's absolutely campaign goodness.
I want to play this so bad.
I know. Please play it with me once I get Voices of the Datasphere.
Absolutely. Well, in lieu of playing today, I think it's time that we figure out what happens with these particular characters in our fanfic portion of the show.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Awesome. So we've got these three amazing characters, have been friends for a while. And I come back with on my mysterious quest of sorts.
Yeah.
And rope both of you into my shenanigans.
Absolutely.
So something mysterious happened and then you come back? Is that
I think there was something that I was following that was kind of mysterious. Maybe I uncovered something in one of the runes that I was delving into. And maybe searching for answers for this thing that I found led me to discover something a little weird and a little mysterious that led to more questions and every question I answered led to even more that eventually brought me back to the both of you.
Cool.
I can see that being really compelling.
Yeah.
So are you like back home, like, okay, I have to just start over from the bottom because now I have question upon question upon question? Or are you like following the trail and the trail has led here?
I want to say the trail led here.
Cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I don't know if the trail directly involved either of you, but it could be interesting if it was something from our past, Darcy.
Yeah, I like that a lot. one question I have for us is, Ursula, did you also grow up in this town, or did you come from elsewhere? Like, is your Howls at the Moon ability like a recent thing, or is it something you've had for kind of a long time?
Ooh. I think it's something I've had for a long time, but it's recently gotten worse.
Cool. Okay. I like that. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's like, so you kind of you've like educated kids, right? You sort of like, or given lectures or workshops of some sort.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like we shared maybe like a mentor or something in the city.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to weave all this together. There's a lot of different
I know, and
ways
some
to
of
go.
it, it's like we would figure it out if we were playing.
I know. One of the big organizations that is across the Ninth World, or at least the Steadfast, sort of where you often start out, is the Order of Truth. It's the Aeon Priests. It's like the tech wizards, right? They're sort of scientists / like kind of religious figures, and they're like very politically powerful. And so often, like, if an intrigue goes all the way to the top, then it's maybe involving like some Aeon Priests, which could be fun. So, I like the idea that like something's gotten worse for your Howls at the Moon, and is like, are strange like illnesses or like Numenera going haywire starting to like happen across the city, and so maybe the three of us need to like team up to sort of mitigate it here, but like what root caused it or who started it, it could be kind of a question we start to follow.
I could see kind of this path leading towards needing to go to a specific like kind of runes of some sort.
Yeah.
And getting through these runes would require all three of our skill sets.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I can imagine a session where we're like kind of information gathering, and then we sort of like find the way to these ruins, and somehow, maybe Ursula's scan ability, right, can maybe scan some areas that are getting like really haywired, and you start to like triangulate where like the disruption's coming from. So yeah, I think this definitely leads us to a ruin. What kind of ruin do we think it is? We've got a lot of Numenera's aesthetic is like weird floating stuff, or it could be like deep under the ocean, or on the back of a moving animal or big structure. It could be behind a brick in a simple wall, but it leads to a whole other realm.
I like the idea that it's a cave in this mountain that is not made of rock.
Oh, I love it. What color is it?
Ooh, I think it's blue.
I love it. Ugh.
So it like looks like every other mountain, like in a mountain range, but it's like this one particular peak that is not made of the same, like, and we don't know what it's made of, but it's not rock.
Awesome.
Is it artificial?
We don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
No idea.
Maybe
Theories abound.
Maybe that's part of the mystery.
Cool. So yeah, I love the idea that maybe we were like, we go and have to explore this ruin. Maybe we find out a little more about like what's up with your Howls at the Moon thing. Do you think you were chasing a person or just like clues? Your character, Selena, do you think she was like hunting down like a group of people that like maybe caused this, or is it, sort of hard to tell? Is it just a whim of the strange Numenera around us?
Yeah, I think it was originally a string of clues that she was following. And then eventually the clues were pointing towards a more intelligent mind behind what was happening. And it's ambiguous whether it's a living or artificial intelligence.
Yeah. I would really want to take us potentially to, perhaps as part of like a longer campaign, to a place called the Wheel of Baz, Weal. It is like a whole cool community of like automatons and like machine intelligences that kind of form a refuge and a little community together. It's really cool. And so
that's
if it is a machine intelligence or something, maybe we like trace it all the way over there. Yeah, I guess one question I would have for you two is like, if we were following these 3 characters, do we think we'd want to engage more with like the having a home base community side? Do you think we'd want to like venture out and still have the city of our home be our home? Or like, do you think we strike out and have to go very far away and don't really have like a home base or a place we keep coming back to?
I love the idea of having a home base.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say the city that we are originating from, not a very big city.
Yeah.
Like a tight-knit community of sorts.
Oh, cool.
Maybe less than 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And it's something where everything kind of matters, right?
Yeah, every little bit counts.
Mm-hmm. Because you don't have like a lot of redundancy when you have that few of people.
Yep.
Right.
So like the local restaurants are going to be more, important. The local tailor is going to be the tailor in town.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
And then building up that community and reinforcing the community and protecting that community, I can see that being really intriguing long term.
Mm. And like, yeah, I mean, the 3 of us, right? Like we had a childhood here. You know, Ursula like is like a really important part of like, the like tailor. Are you using like cool, weird Numenera tricks as you're like helping with weaves and stuff? Or are you like, well, I'm so curious about like what specialty you did in the weaving. Like, are you still part of the tailoring or are you like branching out on your own now?
I feel like yes, because I think we talked about you doing some of that too.
Yes.
Like the idea that we're doing that together, that like we've sort of like we now specialize in this like weird
is it like
form of
our
tailoring
shop?
that, like,
is it like,
oh, that would be really cute.
It has to be.
Oh,
It has
I love
to be.
it. Cool. This is really neat. Oh, I love it. There's a bunch of really cool. One thing I really like about the way that Numenera's map is set up is there's a bunch of like areas that are kind of described for you and often like are presented in a really like easy to grab as a GM and like riff off of manner. So there's often like if you go to the Sea Kingdom of Gone, there's the City of Bridges, which is a place we could be. And there's a little sidebar that's like Gone hearsay. So like cool rumors in the area, stuff like that. But there's also a bunch of places on the map that are like little weird squares that are like a little faded. And those are like sites on the map where like a cool thing is, but MCG will never tell you what it is. So it's like, here's a great spot to like jot in on your map our town if we wanted to make it, right? Or like that cool weird blue mountain range ruin. I bet that's in the Black Riage and we can just pick one of those little squares and make it ours. So, I'm so curious about our town.
Yeah.
I love it.
I can see like this mystery going cold at some point.
Yes.
And then
that's
we're like,
so smart.
we don't know what to do now. We hit a dead end.
Yeah.
What else could we do aside from work with the community and help our hometown out? And then getting into like, well, I want an excuse for us to dungeon delve still.
Yes.
Right? Because
of course.
that's kind of all my character is about. So maybe I drag the 2 of you to look for materials for tailoring. To make it like a super unique tailoring. Like not only are we the only tailors in town, but like we're starting to gain renown regionally. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I wonder if there's like a legend of our town of like this, I don't know, like important figure who like saved the town from some like intense danger. Like there's maybe a prophecy, who knows, if we want to throw some fantasy in. But like, this figure had like an amazing mantle with like mystical properties, or like, I wonder if there's something that like, the 3 of us are trying to recreate or find some like thing that we think would really help us or help the town.
I want to throw something a little weird at that too.
Oh, dude,
Okay.
do it. Do it.
Us figuring out how to create this mantle leads to figuring out that the mystery is a way to send this mantle back in time.
Oh, cool.
So we have to create the mantle.
We created the legendary thing, but like it's from before.
Yes. Timey-wimey nonsense is perfect. Oh, I love it.
I'm here for it.
But what goes wrong? Everything we go through many sessions of amazing adventure. We find incredible technology and new friends and NPCs, and maybe our village is even getting a little bigger. Cool things we've built for it. And we're finally ready. We have to send this mantle back. I feel like there's some complication, or is the mantle sentient or something? Like what complicates, or do we get sent back? It's a classic.
Oh.
Or part of us.
Oh, no.
Or do we leave on a dramatic cliffhanger, as that campaign comes into a season close? I love it.
There could be a lot of interesting complications for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like whatever the complication is, it has to involve a terribly heartbreaking decision.
It does. Yeah. I bet, if we knew more about the NPCs that we've become very attached to, I bet that has something to do with it somehow.
If this was a campaign ending complication, I would say we have to send it back in order for all of this working, but only one of us can go with it.
Ugh.
And one of us has to go with it.
Just twist that secret dagger of yours hidden up your sleeve. Just twist it into us. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Which one of us would do it? I think there's 3 alternate endings to this campaign.
There is. Oh no.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's so sad in any case because we're so interconnected,
Yeah.
It would be really brutal for any of us to.
I guess we'll never know.
No.
I love it. Whoever gets sent back leaves a message though that the other 2 find, right? Because they can go back in time and scrawl in an ancient rock.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, so yeah, whoever goes back scrawls in an ancient rock, which is the mystery that Ryan discovers eventually.
Amelia, get out!
It leads him to go on this quest to make it in the first place.
Oh my God,
right?
We've closed the loop. We did it. Everyone, take a long lunch. This is amazing. Oh, I love it so much.
Oh, wow.
I'm
right.
I'm very overwhelmed. It's so good. Hot dang.
Oh, what a good game that we didn't play.
What a good game we didn't play. Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
My heart.
All right. Well, finally, let's get into the last segment of our show. It's our advancement discussion where we take it up a level.
Take it up a level. Take it up a level.
All right. In this segment, we will cover character advancement and growth in the system. So how do we think characters change as people within the narrative of the game?
Is this generally characters or our characters?
Our characters, yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Or characters.
Generally.
I think it's
Either
more.
way.
Yeah, it's So here's my general statement, and then we can get into our characters. My general statement is there are a lot of different valid paths to character advancement in Numenera. So that same XP that you get by allowing me to complicate your life as a GM with the GM intrusions, or through gaining through discovery. So when you discover things, you get XP. And that's a very vague term and intended to be because lots of campaigns will look very different. And so what discovery means to your group might look different than others. And you also can get XP for, setting up goals, like narrative goals for your character and sort of pursuing along them. So I'm imagining, Ryan's character, Celine, would be getting some XP every time she finds a little more clue to, to push this along. I might find XP for finding a cool, relevant passage in a book about that, that mantle that we were searching for. And Amelia's character might find other cool Taylor-related discoveries or discoveries about how to master her beast form and stuff. So as you collect this XP, you can spend it to, re-roll, to play your intrusions. So you have these sort of short-term spends. And then you also can spend it to advance your character, gaining new skills, gaining new abilities, upgrading like your focus, upgrading, your type. So characters have tiers in Cypher system. And so you have 6 tiers, and you basically need to do 4 different things, 4 different kinds of advancements to get to the next tier. So you have to increase your effort, right? You can spend more effort, increase an edge, so that discount you get to pool spends, and then like 2 other things of which there are many choices. So you can also do stuff like, I could not advance my character and I could just buy skills for 4 XP each all day long. I could just be a tier 1 character that would still be perfectly functional in your group. Although maybe, sad that I can't spend 6 levels of effort, but I could have so many skills. So I'm imagining that my character, like, I would want to get a little better at illusions. I would definitely want to get like cooler as a tailor. And I would want to like, spend a lot of time becoming really good with the community. So I could imagine like, I don't really have any social skills right now, but I can imagine as we become more important leaders to the community, I might want to invest some in that. Like, I would love to see my character, I'm imagining my delve is very nurturing, right? But like, maybe doesn't know how to like extend themselves or like kind of reach out to people. I'm sort of like, maybe I kind of like lean on the nano or like my childhood friend to kind of like help draw me out of my shell a little. But I would love to see some growth in like the ability to comfort people and like maybe persuade and lead and inspire. I would like to see that kind of grow over time.
Yeah.
Well,
what about you folks? Yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to spend some time, I think, like figuring out and coming to terms with this beast form.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the arc that I'm interested in, like at least personally.
Right.
Trying to figure out like what's up with that. Why is that? How do I control that?
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
Right. Yeah. Like why I don't want to eat my friends.
Yeah.
How do I not eat my friends?
Exactly. That's a question we should all be asking.
That we should all be asking ourselves. How can I stop eating my friends?
I love it.
And then for myself,
I have a question about your beast form. Does your beast form change over time? Like if you still have your beast form, like does the cool like bear personality start to grow and change?
Well, so like I said, I think that it's recently gotten worse.
Right.
So I think that it started out as like either like not a full transformation or like it was an adorable small bear.
Oh my god,
something like that. So like it's gotten worse in that like like it probably didn't used to be bloodthirsty and carnivorous or like that is a recent change.
Oh, I love that. And how about Celine?
Celine, I believe she wants to get both better at traversing these runes. So better physically and all that sort of stuff. Better at combat, because I think that's like something that we are a little
sorely
light
lacking.
on. Yeah. And I think she just wants to be better at protecting her friends during these dangerous delves and whatnot. Because she's used to going solo. And maybe being a little bit more stealthy in that regards. Yeah. Even though she's not skilled at that, but going with a group, I think she wants to get better at protecting, but also like the knowledge of the past, she wants to kind of increase her maybe gain some skills in understanding the Numenera better.
Oh, neat.
Which would be interesting.
And that could be kind of, I could imagine cool scenes of like, our learned nano, right, is like extremely knowledgeable about Numenera.
I have a book about it. Am I starting?
I'm just imagining like really heartwarming, like how we share information with each other and what we learn from each other over time. That'd be extremely charming.
Yes.
Yeah. There is a lot of bonding opportunities in this party.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I love them.
Me too. They're good.
What a good group.
I know.
Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much it for advancement then, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think like there would be kind of advancement to be seen with the community, right? So communities like start out as with levels and, they have, the level sort of represents like what it takes for like big environmental disasters or like an army to like, you know, get through your walls. So we haven't fleshed that out as a full character like we have, but I think over time we would also see our town mechanically and narratively kind of grow and flourish and change, which would be fun, really fun to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that we want to say before we wrap things up?
No.
I don't think
Good
so.
kids.
I like
What
these
good kids.
characters.
I know.
No.
They're very wholesome.
I know.
I love them.
We got to play.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Darcy, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Numenera. So much fun.
Oh, you can see through the video that my cheeks have gone up to my eyes and I can't stop smiling. I've enjoyed this so thoroughly. This has been an absolute delight. Thank you.
Can you go ahead and remind everyone where they can find you online and what sort of things you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find the work of my amazing team at Monte Cook Games at montecookgames.com or on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Monte Cook Games. My personal stuff, so Weird Snail Facts, Air Plant Enthusiasm, my RPG exuberances is at Darcy L. Ross, DarcyLRoss. Upcoming stuff you should be looking forward to is we have our Voices of the Datasphere, the cool new Tron meets Numenera supplement that I'm very hyped for. Arcana of the Ancients just came out, and Beneath the Monolith is about to come out. Those are two products that are bringing the weirdness of the Ninth World and the setting of the Ninth World, respectively, to 5e. So if you have a group that really wants to stick with a comfortable rule set, but you are excited by like the weirdness of Numenera, you can come make weird Numenera characters and play with a 5e rule set. So I'm really excited for that.
Nice.
And Burn Bright is BRYTE, is a Roll20 based RPG that I had a small part in, but am very excited for. And it has lots of weird because I was helpful in designing it. And so look forward to an RPG by Roll20 coming out this summer called Burn Bright.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what that one has. It sounds interesting.
It's
I've heard about it.
I'm not saying you can romance a ship, but you can. It's great. I am saying that.
Amazing.
Yes.
Well, Darcy, thank you for joining us, and thank you again to everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you, listeners.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter at CreationCast or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Amelia Antrim, and I can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning or on my other podcast, Garbage of the Five Rings. Our other host, Ryan Bolter, can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Amelia Antrim. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to leave us a rating or review, we have links to various review platforms out there, including Apple Podcasts, in our show notes. Also check the show notes for links to our other projects. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time. Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Character Creation Cast is hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, visit oneshotpodcast.com, where you will find other great shows like Total Party Kill.
Total Party Kill is a weekly live Twitch stream where John Patrick Cohen, Eddie Klinker, and James Dugan play through Cephalofair Games' Gloomhaven. Join them in the stream to play along through the action and interact with a constantly changing cast of characters and special guests, or watch them after the fact on the One Shot YouTube channel. TPK airs Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central Time at twitch.tv/OneShotRPG.